A momentous event can change a country, but change never stops. And Hungary has been changing since the Iron Curtain fell. This was Budapest 30 years ago. A giant crowd, moving speeches. This activist spoke out against Moscow. He's changed quite a lot. That activist was Viktor Orbán. He's Hungary's prime minister now, and he's become Russia's best friend in Europe. He praises Vladimir Putin. He criticizes EU sanctions on Russia. But why?
Orbán obviously regards Russia as a model country in terms of that if you want to govern for a long time, you have to reduce the independence of the media, prosecutor's office, you have to reduce the independence of the opposition parties, and so on and so on.
There's something else fueling closer ties between Hungary and Russia, and it's to do with energy.
Around 2/3 of all the oil refined here comes from Russia. Hungary is heavily dependent on Russian energy imports, oil and gas. And although there is talk about the need to diversify, the need for alternative sources, right now this reliance on Russian fossil fuels is a factor in shaping relations between Budapest and Moscow.
The government says, don't mistake economic pragmatism for Putinism.
Accusing Hungary and Prime Minister Orbán with any kind of pro-Moscow sentiment is just ridiculous. We cannot have a more specialized relationship with Russia than any other European country because there are confines by the very rules of belonging to the European Union.
But Moscow does spy opportunities here. Nikolai Kosov is an ex-Soviet diplomat with connections at the heart of Russian government. He heads a development bank that's just relocated from Moscow to Budapest.
Critics of your bank call it Vladimir Putin's Trojan horse, a tool for Moscow to spread spies and agents across Europe. Is there any truth in that?
Absolutely not. It's all allegations, falsifications, and even though they are repeated hundreds of times already, they have nothing to do with the reality.
But can you understand where this suspicion comes from? Because, apologies for getting personal, but you yourself are from a family of Soviet spies.
Which I never concealed.
Right. Your father was the head of the KGB here in Budapest?
In Budapest, yes. That's how I started to like the city many years ago.
And your mother was a famous Soviet agent too?
That is over-exaggeration. My mother, yes, she worked in the first department of KGB, but she retired back in 1953, Steve.
When the Iron Curtain was torn down, Hungary turned away from Moscow. But relations are being rebuilt. It's not a repeat of the past, but it does give Russia an ally and influence in the centre of Europe. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Hungary.